Hi, my name's Jessie. I'm an employee at Farmer John's. I work in the nursery department here, and today I want to introduce you to one of my favorite topics, having a pollinator-friendly garden, creating something that the pollinators can use, plants that are native to this area, and we'll start out with native bees versus honeybees, which are an introduced species in this country. You have native bees such as bumblebees, mason bees. You have other pollinators that are useful, butterflies, moths, hoverflies, wasps. You can even count beetles in that group. And of course, everybody's favorite, hummingbirds. Pollinator gardens, they're not neatly landscaped gardens. They can be messy. You have plants that might have a more wild look, but really the pollinators that you're trying to attract, they don't care. They just want that color, they want the nectar, they want the pollen that they're going to make use of. Let's start out with butterflies, native plants versus introduced species. You have to remember that insects will not get a chemical signal from introduced species as something that they can use as food, so they won't eat it, they won't be able to digest it. A very popular nectar plant for butterflies has been, for quite some time, butterfly bush, but you need to remember it's an introduced species from China, and it's starting to have problems with becoming invasive in some states. So if we go for a particularly interesting plant, see Philanthus or buttonbush. It won't look like much right now, but this is a good one for getting the butterflies in. It creates habitat for them, and the deer don't like it. If we go for Eupatorium, big white flowers. This isn't the Joe Pye with the tall pink. This will have big white flowers late summer. We could go for Veronicastrum. Butterflies make use of that. White flowers on a very tall plant. We've got yarrow here. You have to remember some yarrows don't look like the native species because they're basically hybridized, and I call them nativars. We have Baptisia, a good native plant that butterflies will make use of, and bees. We also have blue star, a good spring flower, butterflies again and bees. Viburnum, a good substitute shrub. This is a native species. Viburnum trilobum, American compact cranberry bush. They get these nice landing pads of flowers. Butterflies will certainly make use of that. Let's talk about hummingbirds. Hyssop or agastache give you a nice tall red bloom. The fragrance on the foliage is really more like licorice anise fragrance, but hummingbirds will go for this. Over here, the coral bells, again a nativar. Hummingbirds will like lobelias. These can be just about grown in a pond or very moist soil. We've got red, which is very attractive for hummingbirds, and the blue also works well. Lobelia grow rather tall, but they'll really be attractive to not just hummingbirds, other pollinators in your garden. We cannot forget host plants. This is dill, very good for attracting swallowtail, and also the bronze fennel, another good host plant for larval caterpillars of the swallowtail butterfly. This one will get very large and it will recede. Again, not a bad thing if you're trying to develop an area that pollinators like butterflies can use. The buckeye tree, beautiful red flowers. The hummingbirds will like it. Also think of that as a nativar. It's hybridized from the native buckeye tree in this area. Last thing I'll mention, if you have a pollinator garden, and like I said, they can be messy, but maybe a little bit bigger dish than this, put a little gravel and water. It's important for bees and butterflies to be able to have some water source that they can use during the day, and try to use a little less in the way of pesticides, obviously, especially a broad spectrum pesticide. It's going to hurt not only the bugs that you want to eliminate, but good bugs. The one thing I'm going to stress is try to consider what you're trying to achieve in a pollinator garden. Trying to stick with a native plants. You might not be able to, but at least get some introduction so that insects, pollinators can make use of your landscape, and I think you'll be pretty happy. I really appreciate your viewing this today. Thank you.